Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It's that time of year, middle of August, time to do some playoff predictions. Who's going to make the playoffs? Who's going to come a little bit too close but not make it? And of course, at the end, who is going to win it all? I like to do this about 6 weeks left in the season. We do it every year. It's probably the third year or fourth year in a row we've done it. And with me being away this weekend for the power rankings, it's normally every Sunday, but I usually miss one or two a year, and this coming up Sunday is one of them. So I'm gonna bring out this video this week, so I hope you guys like it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let me know what predictions you have different from mine. Do you agree with any of it? Am I completely out to lunch? I love to hear from you guys. On top of that, we are getting closer and closer to the first step of the giveaway. We just crossed over 700 subs. We need 750 by the end of August. We're starting to cut it close. I really thought we were going to blow this away, but now we're getting really close. I don't know if we're going to make it, but 750 subs by the end of August, and I'll be giving away a hat team choice for the guy who wins. But yeah, jumping into it, we always start things off with the American League, just pretty much reading left to right. That's pretty much how it's been. So in case you're new to playoffs, there's a little bit of a format change since a little bit of the past. It's been this way for since COVID, basically. First and second seed on each side do get a first round bye. Third is automatically the other division leader. So these two teams are our division leaders always, and then third is the other division leader. They will automatically play sixth seed, which is the worst wild card seed, and then 4 and 5 will play in the first round. They play 3 games, best of 3. With the better seed getting all the home games, and then they move on to the next round. Top seed of 1 will be playing the winner of 4 and 5, and then 2 will play the winner of 3 and 6. So that's basically how it goes. Best of 3, best of 5, and then as the championship and World Series, it's always best of 7. So in case you didn't know that, there you have it. But I'm going to start things off the American League here. Of the teams I think are not quite going to make the playoffs, but are going to be in the hunt right down to the end. First one up there, I got the Boston Red Sox. All season long, they've been hanging around a lot more than I expected them to. At least in the beginning of the season, they were last place in the division. They're pretty clearly fourth in this division now. The Yankees have cemented being the worst. But I don't know if they have enough juice in the tank to be able to make it into the playoffs. There are a couple games out right now. They haven't played the best of baseball. They just had a rough series against the Blue Jays, which was an important series. They do have the series winning over the Blue Jays so far, but I think they just don't have it, and they're not going to get the players back in time to make a push. But of course, they're going to be close, and I could be off on that one. The next one, this one was tough. This team I almost had them 6. It was a toss-up. We'll get to them, the real number 6 now, but right now, I have close but no cigar, the Seattle Mariners. They've been playing one of the hottest baseball across the whole entire MLB right now. There's still a couple games out of that last playoff spot, 2 games or so. I just don't know. It might be a little bit too late for them. Of course, 2 games out, anything can happen. Any of these teams can make it. And realistically, a team that I don't even talk about could make it, but I don't expect them to. But Seattle, I just have them being a slightly worse off than the rest of the 6 teams. So that's pretty much the main reason I have them out. They are very competitive. They've beaten all these teams that we're going to talk about. And they've just been in the bottom of the standings and had a really, really slow start. And I think that's what's going to come back to haunt them in the long term. So moving on, we're going to go who I think is going to win, have the best record in the American League. And right now, I think they are that team right now. So I do have the Baltimore Orioles being the number 1 seed in the American League. They've played some amazing baseball all season long, and they've been pretty consistent. You can't really hold too much against them. Sure, like every team, they do get obliterated once in a while. They do have some holes that does concern me when it comes to playoffs, and we'll talk about that when I start getting there. But for the rest of the regular season, I do like what I've seen from this team, and they have a little bit of cushion in that American League. 3 games up right now on the Tampa Bay Rays. I do expect them to close it out and finish number 1. Number 2, a little bit of a debate, could go either way. But for me, I do have the Texas Rangers taking that number 2 spot, edging out the Astros for the division lead in the American League West, which would give them the second bye. Because we all know number 3 is going to be the winner of the Central Division. And right now I have the Twins. I'll talk about them in a second. But number 2, Texas, they did all the right moves at the trade deadline. I think they bolstered their roster enough that the division should be theirs. You got a little bit of a lead. Of course, it's really small, but that little small amount with 6 weeks left could make all the difference. I like their offense. It's top in the league, and their pitching is something to be concerned about. If only they had DeGrom, they'd be lights out all around. Number 3, Twins. I don't think there's any real debate here. Someone might talk about the Guardians, but I don't even have them coming close. Twins have opened up the division lead a little bit more than they have had in the past. I think it's up to 4.5, 5 games now. So I do expect them to continue that pace and walk away with it. By far, they're going to be number 3 seed, but they will be the worst team in the playoffs, both sides. So that brings me to number 4, which will be the top wild card team. And right now, I'm considering that to be the Houston Astros. They've been pretty good. They've been consistently pretty good considering all the injuries they've had to deal with all season. They've managed to be a very competitive team. They match up very well against all teams. They have pretty good rotation. Not as good as it could be, of course, if the injuries were there. But they're getting it done. And I like what I see when it comes to playoff time for Astros. They have experience, and they've been there, done that. So I do expect them to make a splash, and we'll talk about that in a minute. That brings us to number 5. 5th seed. I do have the Tampa Bay Rays. I expect them to lose out on the division to the Baltimore Orioles, and I do still think they're going to fall down the standings a little bit more. At one point or another, I kind of even consider them being over here. Not going to lie. But I do think, even though they have all this distraction right now off the field with Wander Franco, they have shown the offense to be able to carry them. They did get such a massive cushion. They still are around 600 baseball. And they would really, really need a disaster to fall out of the playoffs. And right now, I don't see the disaster happening. That's why I do have them there. Will they be one of the strongest teams in the playoffs? I don't know. I don't believe so. And we'll talk about that in a second. And that brings us to number 6. I have them barely making it in, barely getting in over Seattle at the Toronto Blue Jays. Maybe it's a little bit of bias. You can call me out for that if you want. Of course, if you're new to this channel, I am a Blue Jays fan at heart, but I try to be as unbiased as possible. I do think the Jays are a good team. They just haven't managed to get it all together to go on a massive streak like some of these other teams. Most of these other teams have had huge win streaks, whereas the Jays just haven't found that yet. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see it coming down the stretch here. And they're going to be a very dangerous team come the playoffs. Look at this. 3 versus 6, Jays versus Twins. I think it's completely unfair that the 6th seed's going to get to play the Twins, because no matter who comes 6th, I expect them to win. So in that case, that would cause them, and the Jays will get a rematch against the Texas Rangers. And when I say rematch, I'm thinking back to maybe 5 years ago when Batista's cranking that bomb, bat flipping off the Texas Rangers. That's what I kind of see happening here. And then the 4 versus 5, these guys have matched up a lot over the past couple of years. Of course, it's gone both ways, but this season, I think it's going to be a pretty clear situation where the Houston Astros are the better team than the Tampa Bay Rays. The Rays are going to kind of stumble into the playoffs, into the 5th seed, where I think Houston is going to be on the better side of their season, where the Rays are going to be on the lesser side, and that's going to make all of the difference. Now, when we get to the next round, and it's going to be a best of 5, so they will be playing in each stadium. I'll start things off here. Texas versus Toronto. These teams match up amazing. This would be a great series. I would expect it to go best of 5. Both these guys have deep rotations. They both have pretty good offenses. I do give the edge to Texas, of course. Their offense has been off the charts. And I think based on what I've seen so far this season, I'd have to give the edge to Texas to go on to the ALCS. But I do expect it to go maybe 5. And that's what my prediction would be. On top of that, I'm excited because I do have tickets to watch these two teams play in Toronto in September. So that'll be a big preview from what I think might happen. That brings us here. It kind of sucks. Baltimore at least will have the edge because the Houston Astros will have to use some of their rotation, some of their top rotation in that first round. So they will have an edge in games 1 and 2. I do expect, though, that Astros are going to find a way to get through that O's. I think the experience is going to make a big difference. But of course, the O's are young. They're talented. They have what it takes, and they've been super hype all season. But in my prediction video here, I do have the Houston Astros getting past the O's, and my prediction would be in 4 games. Of course, it could go either way. Either way, at this point, I think all season long I've been thinking the AL East was the better division in all of baseball. But now, kind of based off this and based on what we've seen the past couple of weeks with Seattle being super hot, I think the AL West might be the best division. That brings us to the AL Championship. Of course, these teams have matched up all season long. We've had some pretty crazy games between these two. Double-digit scores, back and forth leads. It's gone either way. Both these teams have matched up awesome, and it'll make for a great best of 7. I think in a best of 7, I am going to give the edge to the Rangers, and I do think they win in 6. I do think that the Astros, the injuries and that are going to start to play a toll as we get this deep in the postseason. They had a long start to the season, a little bit of a World Series hangover. And it's really, really tough to repeat in this business, to get back to the championship year after year after year. I think this might be where we finally see the tides of the AL West shift. In Texas, I do have them as my AL champions. So let me know, comments below what this is, and we will jump in to the National League. All right, the National League is, I think, just as wide open as the American League. I do think there's a lot more that could be different from my picks here than what other people are picking. I think the 5-6 wild card seeds are wide open compared to the other side. I do think there's only one that might interchange. I do think on this side we could see a big shift. There's a couple teams I'll talk about, but they won't make the board. Diamondbacks, they've had a great season. They realistically are in it. I just don't see them being really tight down the stretch. And the Padres, as bad as they've been, they're only 5 games out. Again, another team I don't think they deserve to make the board. When we get to close teams not making the playoffs, my first one that's going to be a little bit out, I do have the Cincinnati Reds. As much as they've had that hot middle of the summer, it's cooled off a little bit. Rest of the teams are starting to be like, they made some trades at the deadline. They're a little bit bolstered. Cincinnati, they took the steps forward. I just think they're going to fall a little bit short. Another team, same kind of situation. I got the Miami Marlins being the one team that is the closest that doesn't quite make it in. They've had a great season. I wouldn't be shocked either of these teams make it. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. Marlins, I do think, have a little bit of a better chance. Their rotation has been amazing. Their pitching's been great. They added a little bit of offense. They've managed to just have some great luck on their side, especially early in the season where expected runs, expected wins and losses were well above where they were expected to be. So that brings us, let's see, how did I start this? Number 1 seed. I still think that the Atlanta Braves are going to hold on to the 1 seed. I do believe that these 2 seeds are pretty much locked up. I don't expect any other team to really contest for this. They've gotten a massive lead in their division. They've gotten a massive lead in their division. And the Central is by far the weaker division, and that's not going to contend for these 2 spots. So what could happen? The Dodgers could be 1. The Braves could be 2. But in my eyes, the Braves are going to be 1. I think they just have a little bit more of a lead here. They got a little bit of an easier schedule down the stretch. Dodgers, of course, have been super hot and can make a threat at it. But number 3, I got to make a prediction of who's going to win the Central. And right now, this is where I'm leaning. But it could go either way. We'll talk about the other team that I consider in a second. But I do have the Brewers being able to hold on to that division lead. Although it's a little bit risky at this point. They just don't seem to have the consistency that you would want in a playoff team going forward. But I do think they have great pitching that's really going to make a difference. And this is where it's going to get interesting because I have this team being the number 6 seed. But in theory, they could be the number 3 seed. We got the Chicago Cubs. They've been one of the hottest teams in the MLB for the past month. On paper, on analytics, they've underperformed significantly where they should be, and they could easily take number 3 from Milwaukee. But I do think either way, these 2 teams are going to match up. One's going to win the division. They're going to have home field advantage. The other team's going to get the last wild card spot. Realistically, you got Cincinnati in the hunt too. They could be number 6. They could be number 3. I just don't have them there, and that's why they're here. Number 4, this is where it starts to get a little bit interesting. A lot of debate could be here. This team has, in my opinion, very much underperformed this season, but I still think they're going to make it into the playoffs. We got the runner-up of the World Series last year, the Philadelphia Phillies. The bullpen on this team, the rotation is my biggest concern, but I think the bat power, as much as Kyle Schwarber has been awful, the offense seems to be getting enough wins. They seem to get enough, a little bit of streaks here and there to be able to be the 4th best seed. The National League doesn't seem to be as strong, at least when you start to get into the depth of it, as the American League. So I do think Phillies are going to be there, and that leaves us with number 5 seed. I think they're going to hold on. We got the San Francisco Giants. They got a good spot right now. They've been playing pretty good baseball. Not ever since that 11-game, 10-game win streak. Can't remember exactly what it was. They haven't clearly been as good as that. But they matched up super well in their division. They did a lot of good games there. I do like that how they play at home. It seems to be a big deal. And when it comes to playoffs, it's not going to help them in this situation. Of course, being the 5th seed, I do have them on the road. But I do think that they're better than these teams and that they're going to be pretty much a lock for the playoffs. Realistically, the wild card's up for grabs. 3's up for grabs. All 4 of these things could be interchanged. 1 and 2 are a lock. I don't think that's up for a debate. You can try, but I don't think it's there. But let's jump into it. We got number 3 versus number 6. We got Milwaukee versus the Cubs. And while I have Milwaukee being number 3, it's not necessarily because I think they're the better team. I do think the Cubs had underperformed, been super unlucky early in the season, getting hot at the right time. They got the right players. I do kind of expect them to take this one and go and move on to play the Dodgers in the round 2. I do think that one might go 3. Cubs do not have 3 solid starters that I can get super confident in. They can have good starts from time to time, but every once in a while they put up a dud. I do think Milwaukee has the pitching to be able to steal at least 1. Realistically, they could easily take 2. But I got to make a prediction. I'm picking the Cubs. Next up, we got Phillies and the Giants. This one went back and forth a couple of times, and then I really started to think, when it comes to playoffs, you really want to have pitching. That's going to be the biggest deal, and I think Giants in a tight scoring, low scoring game have a huge edge against the Phillies. So I do think in a best of 3, when everything's out on the line, I do have them being the winner. So that brings us to the best of 5. It's going to be tough. So both these teams are going to blow their loads a little bit to get past that first round. They're going to have to clearly, if the Cubs go 3, they're going to have to use the 3 best rotation. And they're going to go up against the Dodgers game 1 and 2 against the bottom of their rotations. Going to be ugly. They're going to be in a pretty big hole pretty quickly, I would expect. Of course, they played the Dodgers very well recently. Took in some games there, but I do think the Dodgers will walk away with that one. And I do think maybe they'll lose 1. They might even sweep. I would think they'll win it in 4. Next up, we have the Giants against the Braves. It's going to be the same kind of situation that I just talked about. They're going to have to use a lot of their pitching in that first round. I think that first round they're going to go 3. They're going to have to go 3 to get through Philly. And the same situation, I think we're destined to have a collision course between number 1 and 2. These teams just seem, in my opinion, to be much farther ahead. If you watch the power rankings every week, these 2 teams have been 1 and 2 for what feels like at least 6 weeks at this point. So they're setting up for a best of 7. I think it's a rematch. I can't quite recall. These guys have been in the hunt for years. It reminds me of Astro Tampa on the other side. Just keep matching up, keep finding a way. I don't know if they've actually matched up as much as Tampa and the Astros, but they should, right? But when we get to 7, this is where I have to make a decision. I think this series could easily go 7, but I'm going to predict the Dodgers to win this one in 6. I love the Dodgers offense. I just think with Freeman and Mookie and all those guys at the very top, they're massive. Of course, you could argue the exact same kind of thing with the Braves. You could go either way. Got to make a decision. I'm picking the Dodgers. I think that seems to be a consistent decision that I've made over the number of years, so maybe there's a little bit of bias there. Not meaningful, not like I have a Dodgers fantasy or anything like that, but just seems to be how it goes. So that would bring us to an interesting championship in the World Series. We would have the Dodgers and the Texas Rangers. I I think this would be great. This offenses would match up super well. I think their pitching is relatively equal. They both have solid bullpens. They have a rotation that's not the toppest of tiers, but they have some top-heavy guys. The depth is somewhat pretty good. They would match up super well. And at this point, I do think that the Dodgers are fine. Like they just need a win here, and I do expect the Dodgers to be the World Series champions in August, the middle of August. Well, everything's going on. This is what my prediction is for the champion, the Los Angeles Dodgers. Guys, if you made it this far in the video, go down there, smash that like button. I really appreciate it. We're going through a heat wave here. You might see I'm sweating my ass off in this room with the ring light on, talking a lot, getting all pumped up. It's just high energy. I'm starting to sweat pretty bad. Smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel. We need to get to that giveaway. We're about 49 away. We got about 2 weeks left. Help people out. Someone deserves a hat. Might have to figure out a way to do it anyway. But guys, sub to the channel. Comments below. Let me know what you guys think. What's crazy? Am I out to lunch? I'd love to hear what you think. Until the next video, guys. Peace out.